Okay, we're live now.
Yeah, that means live.
All right. Well, welcome to the Canes Insight Podcast. I am Stephen Adams. This is my first hosting podcast, and I'm going to be joined by Phil Wood, who's our lead basketball writer here in Canes Insight. And we got a lot of great stuff for you today. The Canes, they were the number 6 seed in the South bracket today, and it's March Madness. So let's bring on Phil and see what he's got to say.
Yeah, I've done a bit of podcasting in my day. You'll see like a Survivor both, I've done like a little bit of podcasting in the past. So I come in here. I'm gonna make Stefan all the better here. We're gonna teach everybody some knowledge on some college basketball here. The Canes get anybody who like saw after I posted the ACC tournament preview. I put we don't want Loyola Chicago in the first round.
So you did actually say this.
This is a true story. Yes, I've been telling Stefan beforehand that I was like scared of Loyola Chicago, and I was like, I've been saying this all week, and I don't think he believed me.
No, I didn't. I'm going to be honest. I didn't know anything about that team before today, and now I kind of do. I'm a little scared. I heard something like they have the number 5 defense in the country.
Yeah,
that's what you were telling me earlier.
Yeah, so here's my exact comment. We're in that tricky spot where a 6 seed may actually be better than a 5. The last thing we want is to get a 5 and find ourselves facing off against someone like Loyola Chicago in the first round. That's a team that cracks down on defense, already has a win in Gainesville, and is a terrible matchup for the Canes. As a 6, we could get an underachieving power conference team in the first round. That's much preferred. Instead, we got the 6, and we got Loyola Chicago, which is just a terrible matchup.
Awesome. I'm really glad that the committee loves us so much and just really respects us and and gave us that great matchup first round.
It's the only reason that it's tricky in this situation is because Loyola Chicago plays the zone defense. They give up 62 points a game, and they play so slow that if Miami doesn't get ahead on them, they're a hard team to come back on. And I saw what we looked like against Syracuse, and I saw what we looked like against Virginia. And not saying Loyola Chicago is Virginia or Syracuse, but they play the same style of defense. And that is like terrifying when you see what the Canes looked like against those two teams. I'm not saying that this is a game that we're going to lose. I'm just saying that this is about as bad of a matchup as you can get when you're 5 seeds ahead of the team that's playing.
I mean, they better not lose. Like, that'd be the biggest anticlimactic possible thing that could happen. What happened? A couple of years ago, they lost in the first round. What was it last year? We lost in the first round to.
Well, here's the fun fact about Jim Larrañaga. Last year, we lost to Michigan State in the first round. Yeah, I was looking up Jim Larrañaga.
Mm-hmm.
Since he's been a coach, he has lost in the first game of like the weekend, I guess you could say. He's always lost on a Thursday or a Friday. Every time he's made the NCAA tournament, except for once.
That one time we went to the Sweet 16, and what was that, 2012?
No, but when we went to the Sweet 16, he lost in the Sweet 16. He didn't make it to the Elite Eight. What I'm saying is when he has a short turnaround time to play against like these teams, if he wins the first game of his weekend, he always wins the second. He's never lost that second game, except for once. He only lost one time, and it was when he was at George Mason. They were an 8 seed, and they lost to Ohio State, who was number 1 overall by 32 points. So that's the only time, though.
So that's good for us.
Well, it's scary for the first game, but if we win that first game, it's very favorable for us to go to the Sweet 16.
Right. The key is if we can build up some momentum, win that first game, then we can projecting out. We'll have a better shot of making a little bit of a run. I wanted to talk a little bit about before we get really, really into the bracket and stuff. I want to talk about how we finished the season against UNC tournament game, ACC's tournament game. We had the double bye into the quarterfinals, and we were the 3 seed. Squared off against UNC. Didn't look very good. A lot of what I was seeing was a lot of settling for 3-pointers, no penetration into the paint, just a lot of settling for threes, terrible transition defense. One of the things that stood out to me in the game was about 3 minutes left. We're down 6, and Coach L starts pressing UNC, and they get back-to-back easy transition buckets, layups, basically. And I think that was really the end. That was the end of the game. And there's no need to start. I was going crazy. There was no need to start pressing with 3 minutes left in the 2-possession game. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on the game?
My biggest thing with that game was like you said, we're down 6. We lost that game by 17. It looked to me like they gave up. And that's what bothered me the most in that game was it looked like once they beat the press twice and Miami didn't score, that team looked like it just gave up. And like it got to the point where at the end, Larinaga was waving them off, telling them not to foul. And I actually thought that was interesting because like I think Larinaga got frustrated with the performance at the end of that game. We had no business losing that game by 17.
Oh yeah, and there was a couple questionable calls too. I think that was frustrating, Coach L.
Absolutely.
Also, I'm definitely not one to complain about refs and shit like that, but there was a couple questionable calls for sure.
No, and there were, and that was noticeable throughout the game, but it was still one of those where we had our opportunities to overcome that.
That's what I mean. Like we had the opportunities were there. We didn't lose the game because of the refs. Of course, there were some calls, but you can say that about any game. They had the opportunities and they just didn't make them pay off, really.
And what I want, I mean, as long as if Jaquan Newton plays the way he played against UNC in both games this year, even though we lost the second one by 17, we're gonna have a pretty good tournament run here. Because if Jaquan,
he's going to be huge for this. He's going to be huge for the tournament. That's one of the things they've been missing this year. Is that they need that senior leader to step up. This isn't a team that's like a Duke or Kentucky loaded with first overall or first round picks. That it doesn't matter if they're a freshman or sophomore, they're going to get it done. No, they need that. They need experience. They need guys that have been there before. And Jaquan Newton is that guy. He needs to step up, and he's done. He did it. He did it against UNC a couple weeks back at Chapel Hill with that buzzer beater that he had at the end. He made a couple big shots down the stretch, and if they can get more of that from him, that type of Jaquan Newton, then Canes will definitely be in a much better spot.
Yeah, and this is always too. This is the time of the year when you get your superstars coming out completely like setting an example here, and that's not Jaquan Newton, that's Lonnie Walker. And I feel like Lonnie Walker had he had like a below average start to the season. Then he really started to pick it up against UNC. This last game he did not look good really at all.
No, he kind of hit a wall lately. I feel like
he has, and Chris Likes has been the best player on the team consistency wise. And I will say though, Lonnie Walker coming into the tournament, if Jaquan Newton's playing as good as he is, we don't know if we're getting Bruce Brown back. Like there's still no official word on that. My hopes, they're not super high. I don't really know, but
no, I don't think he's coming back either.
I don't think it's going to happen.
It's not based on any inside information, guys. So don't hold me to that. But if I had to guess, I don't think he'll be coming back.
It just doesn't feel like it. It just doesn't feel like it. So if he's not coming back, you need Newton to step up and be a senior. You need Walker to play up to his potential. You need Chris Likes to keep doing what he's doing. And right now, the difference in this Loyola Chicago game is going to be Abuka Azundu and DeJuan Huell. The two of them are going to be the difference because Loyola Chicago cannot match up with us on the front line.
Mm-hmm.
So if we settle for shots outside like we did against UNC, we're going to lose that game. But if they get it down low, there's no way Loyola Chicago is going to be able to stop the bigs that we have. And
goes back to the other point I was saying. We can't be settling for threes. That's exactly what Loyola is going to want us to do. And who can help with that is Bruce Brown. And he's the best penetrator on the team by far. You wanted to see more of it from Lonnie Walker, but for whatever reason, he hasn't been assertive enough this season consistently. Where you can really count on him in the tournament. Through multiple games. Maybe one game he'll break out, but they really need the consistency that Bruce Brown brings. And if they don't have him in the lineup, I don't really know how far they can go.
Yeah, I do think the one thing that works out for them is without Bruce Brown, even the matchups in this bottom part of the bracket aren't bad. Like it's actually favorable.
Let's start talking about the bracket. So what are you seeing in the bracket in terms of the bottom? Let's start with the bottom half of the bracket.
Yeah, so we have, I think that this matched up, aside from Loyola, I'm actually not too scared of this part of the bracket,
I agree.
mainly because Cincinnati plays phenomenal defense. They're a really good team. They're going to be underrated in a lot of people's brackets. This is a team I could see people having get knocked off in the round of 32. I don't think they're going to get knocked off in the round of 32, but they're a physical team, but they go on droughts where they don't score, much like some other
Mhm.
team that we're talking about right now. They go through droughts. And it gets brutal sometimes where you're just like, will they ever score again? I mean, today I think when they beat Houston in the conference championship, they won 56-55. I think that game
Yeah,
was
that was a rough game to
33-30
watch.
at half.
That was
Like,
rough.
it was a terrible second half. They couldn't put the ball in the basket. They were down by I think as many as 6, and then Houston choked it
Mhm.
away.
Yeah.
Um, and what's interesting is you're going to have Shaka Smart, who knows how to coach in the tournament. That's his
Yeah, I don't
thing.
like that 10 seed, and I don't like that Texas 10 seed right there. That I don't want to play Shaka.
No, you
Not
don't want
looking
to play.
forward to that.
You don't want to play shotgun. He's going to try to speed up the game on Cincinnati and make them uncomfortable. And on top of that, if Texas were to lose that first round game to Nevada, Nevada and Cincinnati is just a battle of wills because Nevada tries to play as fast as humanly possible. They're
Mhm.
looking to put up, 80 on you every game, while Cincinnati's trying to keep the game around the 60s. And that's a game where who's going to be able to overcome and who's going to be able to win it. In the game
Right.
Nevada lost in their conference tournament to San Diego State, they lost 90-73 and gave up 55
Mhm.
points in the first half. Like, that's insane. They were down by 30, I think, at one point.
Right. But so we got that. We got talking Nevada, and we think Nevada's pretty good. We think Texas is pretty good. Cincinnati's pretty good, but at the end of the day, we still I think we would still say Cincinnati's going to come out and get to the Sweet 16 out of that little area of the bracket. I mean, that's what most people would say.
Yeah, and I think they will be able to do it. The other thing to keep in mind is that this Georgia State team that Cincinnati has to play, that's like the infamous Ron Hunter, who tore his
Yeah,
Achilles while celebrating, had his little scooter when they beat
yeah.
Baylor on the 3. This is a team that's upset minded, and Ron Hunter's done it before. And
Hmm.
Cincinnati is a team that lets teams hang around. And that's a scary thing when you're a 2 playing against a guy who knows how to rally the troops and get them excited to play in an
A
NCAA
big
tournament.
matchup, yeah. In
Yeah.
the NCAA tournament against a big time team like a Cincinnati.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's March Madness, baby. Anyone can win. Anyone can win anytime.
So
But
so
what I've been looking at is Tennessee, and I think that's a good matchup for Miami right now. I'm not that scared of Tennessee. I would be more nervous playing the 4 seed in this bracket, Arizona, or the 5 seed, Kentucky. I don't know what your thoughts on Tennessee are, but
Tennessee's hit or miss. And
mhm.
I've seen Tennessee lost by 28 to Alabama, like in a game where they were never even close. They do have the greatest name of anybody in the tournament in Admiral Schofield. It's the best name in the tournament, so get ready for that. And the guy, Admiral Schofield, can play. I mean, Admiral
Mhm.
Schofield is really good. Grant Williams is solid. This is a good Tennessee team that kind of overachieved a little bit this year.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
and that's always a positive once you get to the tournament for the 6 seed, for the 11 seed, even for the 14 seed playing them. These teams that overachieved, like I just mentioned, Georgia State beat Baylor 3 years back. Baylor did not belong as a 3 seed. They played so well in the regular season, their record didn't really match their talent. They get into that
Mhm.
first round matchup and they drop a game to a team that they would probably beat 9 times out of 10, but they weren't necessarily as good as what their seeding said. Tennessee's one of those teams that was in talks for a 1 seed back in February. And then I
Mhm.
don't even know who did they drop to. They dropped the game to Georgia, and that was really the end of that argument. But they were in talks to be a 1 seed, and they ended up losing the game to Kentucky today, 77-72. But is Kentucky the old Kentucky? There was a point probably back like only a month ago where people were saying Kentucky might go to the NIT.
Yeah,
So it's not the
Kentucky, you
same.
haven't seen, you haven't seen the same uh, kind of killer instinct that you would think Kentucky is used to having. But the talent is still there. That's the thing. The talent is still there. They still have Coach Cal. They're a dangerous team in March. They always have been. It doesn't matter how they've been playing lately or early. All that matters is now, and they have the horses to get it done when it comes time to win games.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look at the top half of the bracket, and I was saying to you before we started talking here that that top of the bracket is a difficult bracket that Virginia is going to win easily. I think Virginia gets to the
Yeah.
Elite Eight, and if we get to the Elite Eight, we're playing Virginia.
How do they put us with Virginia? We cannot get rid of Virginia again. We're possibly playing Virginia to get to the Final Four, which God, I hate Virginia.
You know what it is? There's if you look at there's 9 teams in the tournament from the ACC, which is the most out of anybody, which always makes me laugh when it's like, oh, Miami, or do they deserve to be in the tournament? Well, you're gonna put not now, but like back when we went on our 3-game losing streak. It's do they deserve to be in the tournament? Are they gonna fall out? It's like we didn't even get Louisville in this year, and we still got we didn't even get Notre Dame in, and the ACC still got 9 teams.
The 9
that's
teams
crazy.
is another huge point. I mean, the most of any conference. Miami, Virginia, FSU, UNC, Syracuse, Duke, Clemson, NC State, La Tech. I mean, that's a lot of good teams, and they all got in. Like you were saying, Notre Dame didn't even get in. Louisville didn't even get in. The ACC right now, basketball wise, I think it's the clear number one conference in America.
Well, even a team like Boston College that had no chance at an at-large bid, if they played in any other conference, they're probably a 1 or 2 seed in that conference. Even if they were playing in one of the Power Five, maybe they wouldn't be so high up they would definitely be high up in the SEC. Maybe not the Big 12, just because KU and West Virginia, Texas Tech, they had really great years this year. No, Texas Tech. Am I saying the wrong Texas there? Anyway, whichever. Texas, yeah, A&M's in the SEC. Had a complete.
God bless Texas.
God bless Texas. But so I look at like if Boston College plays in any other conference in America, they are near the top of it with Kai Bowman, Chapman, and we lose a game to them, and it was ugly the way that we fell in that game. We were up 6 and don't score for 6 minutes and lose by 2. That's sad, but that's a team that also went on and made a push. They gave Clemson a run for their money in the ACC quarterfinals.
Yeah,
they could
beat talent.
Anybody there. So that's our 12th place team. That's crazy. Those are your top 12. If Bonzi Colson plays for Notre Dame all year, Notre Dame's in this tournament.
They'll probably be in. Yeah, I agree.
Easily. Not even close. So, I mean, for our path just to get to the tournament is so hard. And that's why if you go on right now, Seth Greenberg's already saying on ESPN, Loyola Chicago is the upset pick. I think when it was announced, somebody said Loyola Chicago is the upset pick on CBS or TBS. They were saying that's the upset pick. You got to remember you're playing an ACC team that going into conference play in the non-conference at one point was ranked as high as 6th in the country. So are they really a team that's going to drop to a Loyola Chicago, or are they a team that could really make a run at beating Tennessee, beating Cincinnati, and you're looking at an ACC, Elite Eight here
with matchup with Virginia?
Yeah.
It to me, it's just they need Bruce Brown to come back. I love the Canes, but I can't see it without Bruce. It's not just one game either. You got to win. You got to win multiple. String together. You have to be consistent throughout 2 weekends, and that's tough to do. What this team's shown is kind of tough to do without Bruce Brown. I don't know what your thoughts are.
I just think you have to commend a team that without Bruce Brown still goes on to be the 3 seed in the ACC tournament. The conference against 9 teams. They get the 3rd seed in that conference tournament. You're looking at UNC is a 2, Duke is a 2, Virginia's a 1. Like these are all teams that are like ranked. That means in the top 8 in the country. And we've played with those teams. We beat UNC and UNC. Yeah. We played with Duke. We had them beat.
They should have beaten Duke.
Yeah. Virginia, I mean, that game was not good.
That game was awful.
Yeah, that was painful.
I was at that game. I had to sit there and watch that game in person.
Not jealous.
I think the score was at halftime was 25-16 or something. Like
it was so ugly. That was an absolutely horrible game, but
which brings me, honestly, I wanted to get this point in. The Canes got to stop with the droughts, the constant, scoring droughts. It's maddening almost. They'll just go. They're the one of the most consistent teams in America that will go 5 minutes without scoring, and they do it at least once a game. It feels like.
And that's why this first round matchup scares me more than their second round matchup, because Loyola Chicago plays that type of game where they're going to hold the ball for 30 seconds on offense.
Suffocate. They're going to run the shot clock. They're going to limit the amount of total possessions in the game. They're going to make so every possession count. They're going to make you value your possessions.
Yeah.
And if Miami doesn't do that, then it'll be tough for them for sure.
And when you look at the way Loyola, the way they operate is they give up 62 points a game, which is fifth best in the country. On offense, they only average 72 points a game, which is 216th in the country. That's not how they're beating you. And if you don't, what Miami needs to do is Miami needs to jump out on them so that if they do go into a drought, Loyola is still playing uncomfortable for themselves. You can't let Loyola be 10-10 at the 10-minute mark in the first half. Right. Because if that's the case, you're playing Loyola basketball.
Mm-hmm. So get up on them early, make them uncomfortable, win, profit.
Please, exactly.
That's the blueprint. That's as simple as that.
Please win.
And Bruce Brown. We need Bruce Brown.
Yeah, but even without Bruce Brown, I think that this matches up favorably because I don't see us going into a drought against the Tennessee. Tennessee is a team that also has really big problems with droughts. And I don't think Wright State can play with Tennessee. But that's one of those games where, like, if Tennessee has an off game, Wright State's right there to just, like, to be able to have the ball in a two-possession game with a minute left. That's very feasible in that 3-14 matchup.
I agree. And so before we were talking about, the upper part of the bracket, Virginia area and the Kentucky and Arizona. But Kentucky and Arizona have two tough matchups themselves with Buffalo and Davidson. Would you see one of those teams getting upset? What do you think?
So I think Davidson and Buffalo are the best 12 and 13 in the tournament. The other 12 and 13, San Diego State is okay. New Mexico State has a really good matchup against Clemson, and Murray State and Marshall both have matchups they could win. But I think Davidson and Buffalo are actually the two best. And I think, yes, Kentucky just won the SEC tournament, but Kentucky this season hasn't been that great. They haven't been Kentucky. And Arizona, this is a team where they preseason number 1 or 2, like they were top 5 preseason. Yeah. They really fell off. And that Pac-12 this year was not good.
And then when you're talking Arizona, you have to talk about the recent scandals going on with them. Are they mentally focused? Are they 100% there? I don't know. It definitely could make an impact in their first round game. And Buffalo's going to be ready to play. They're going to put up some points. It's going to be a shootout, I think. And
Buffalo's the 7th highest scoring team in the country. They average 84.8 points per game. So you want to talk about a team? They're a team that played Cincinnati and scored 67 on Cincinnati. That might not sound like a lot. Scoring 67 points on Cincinnati, you're doing something right there, because Cincinnati wants to slow that game down to most opponents getting in the 50s. They went to Texas A&M, scored 73 on Texas A&M. Now these are games they lost, obviously, but still they put up the points. And I think that with Arizona, they just won the Pac-12, so some would say they are focused, but the Pac-12 didn't get their number 2 seed into the tournament in USC. Pac-12 got 3 teams. Arizona State is in always because of what they did in the non-conference. Their conference, they were not good. They're going to be playing Syracuse in that first 4 game. That is a game that I don't even know how either of those teams really got in at this point. And then you look at UCLA. UCLA is also in the first 4. If you really think about it, after the first Tuesday and Wednesday of the tournament, Arizona could be the only Pac-12 team in the round of 64.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And for me, that says you get a 4 seed, but this is like when Gonzaga used to get 2 seeds and lose in the second round to a Nevada. Were they as good? San Diego State gets a 2 seed, loses in the second round. Is this Arizona team actually that good, or was the Pac-12 really down this year and Arizona just gets a favorable positioning because of their name? Buffalo's going to put up 80 points in that game. Is Arizona going to be able to put up 80 more?
Yeah, can Arizona outscore them? That's what it's going to come down to.
So that's why I'm saying that's a very tough top of the bracket where a double-digit seed could go on to face Virginia, or Kentucky or Arizona could face Virginia. But these aren't the Kentucky or Arizonas that we're used to seeing. Virginia is going to be in the Elite Eight. It's like I would
Yeah,
say it's like a 5% chance they don't.
they're the most consistent team in America. That's their MO. They're going to suffocate you with defense. They're not going to let they're not a team that's going to let someone sneak up on them. They're well coached. They're going to be ready to go. I agree. I don't see them getting upset, at least in the first two games.
Absolutely. And if you look at that 8-9 matchup there, the Creighton versus Kansas State, neither of those teams has the offensive ability to beat Virginia. Like Virginia.
Shout out K-State, by the way. That's what it's like Baker, Kansas or something. Manhattan, Kansas. That's where it is. Manhattan, Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
That's where our resident, or not resident, our other basketball writer Aaron Breckeisen's from. He's a huge K-State fan, also. But they're definitely gonna lose first round. So sorry, Aaron.
Yeah, exactly. Creighton's the better team there, but how is Creighton going to beat UVA? And what I love about UVA this year is everybody's probably sitting there saying they're all defense. They don't play offense. They don't need to. Louisville tried to take it to Virginia twice this year, and both times Virginia said, no, we're going to outscore you. And they did outscore Louisville. They let Louisville push the pace. Then they outscored them and just sat on it in that second game. In the first game, they needed the buzzer beater, but still, they just keep finding a way. And I could see them losing to another major team, but this is one of those teams where they could go and play Kentucky in that Sweet 16, and people would be like, oh, it's Kentucky, it's Kentucky, it's Kentucky. And UVA could win that game by 15 points and only be like 2-point favorites going into the game. That's how good this UVA team is compared to everybody else in the country.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So realistically, for Miami to get to the Final Four, I don't see it happening. Virginia would need to go down. But to get to the Elite Eight, I think that our hardest matchup to get to the Elite Eight is the first round matchup to wake that team up, get them playing. This is really Jaquan Newton's the only one who really has played significant basketball in March.
In March, yeah.
Because like Huel, I know they were on the team. People were on the team last year, but if you think that was a significant basketball game, I mean that's how not to perform in March. Go up 17-1 and lose the game by 20 points or whatever we went up.
Which is what happened against UNC. Similar situation. The last game, they were up 14-0 and blew that. So no more of that, Miami.
But please go up 14-0 on Loyola because you'll win.
Yeah. Like we were saying, like Loyola doesn't have that type of offense that can just explode for spurts of the game.
They're.
Go ahead.
In their last 4 games, just one last point on Loyola. In their last 4 games, they scored 68, 54, 62, and 65, and they won all of those games. It's crazy.
That just shows. It goes to show. I mean, Miami's going to have to bring it, and they're going to have to put up a little bit more, show a little bit more on offense, I think, than they have been.
Yeah.
And again, Bruce Brown's going to be key. We were talking about this earlier too. The teams that kind of snuck in towards the end, and everyone was kind of talking about Syracuse. They have like 12 losses or something, and
20-13.
They got in over St. Mary's. A lot of people thought St. Mary's should have gotten in over them. So what do you think about Syracuse getting in?
Syracuse doesn't belong in, and this has happened before.
That's just it. They're out. They're now out. So get them out of here.
Yeah, it's one of those where I really question if Syracuse wasn't Syracuse, would they be in this tournament? And the answer is no. I knew either Syracuse or Notre Dame was making the tournament this year. I just didn't know which one they were going to go with, and I kind of was hoping they'd go with Notre Dame because with Bonzie Colson, Notre Dame's gone to back-to-back Elite Eights. They have Farrell. They have Rex Pfluger. They have Bonzie Colson now. That's a team that could seriously, seriously make a run. And you know what? The last time Syracuse got in, they made it all the way. What were they, in the Elite Eight or the Final Four? They made it all the way really deep. They might have made it to the final. Where did Syracuse go when they made it as the 10 seed?
I don't know. We're going to need a statistician for the show or something because
I know, right? We need
know.
Man, I gotta like look this up. But anyway, the last time Syracuse got in, they were a 10 seed. They got the favorable matchup because Middle Tennessee knocked off Michigan State in that crazy first round game. So they made it. They played against Gonzaga, who was an 11. They had one of the highest totals for a team that made it all the way to the final. I think they made it all the way to the Final Four because they knocked off an 8 seed. I really got to find this. I'm feeling not the best, but do they deserve to be in? No, but they could still make a run because Boeheim knows how to coach in the tournament. But you look at a team like Middle Tennessee, you look at St. Mary's. Those are two teams. St. Mary's beats Gonzaga in Gonzaga. Like Syracuse's best win of the year is probably against us.
Which, hey, that's a pretty good win. That's a pretty good win.
But we're also
but that's not. I know what you're saying. That's not signature enough without the rest of your resume, being on par. That's not enough to get in off one big win. I understand what you're saying.
Absolutely. And you look at, they lost to Kansas. They lost to St. Bonaventure. They lost to Wake Forest. They lost to Notre Dame before Colson was back. They've lost to some weak teams. They lost to Georgia Tech at Georgia Tech. This is a team that, to me, you look at a Middle Tennessee. Yeah, they lost in their quarterfinals, which is brutal. But they also lost to Miami by 3 on a neutral court. St. Mary's wins in Gonzaga, and yeah, that's their only big win. But Syracuse has beaten Clemson and Miami. That's it.
Yeah,
that's it. Mm-hmm. So I just don't think Syracuse did enough to get into this tournament. Now, granted, they're playing against a team that also didn't do enough to get into this tournament, which is Arizona State, who Arizona State has some marquee wins.
In the playing game.
It is a playing game. I know
they need to get rid of the playing game. I hate the playing game. I think it's the stupidest thing ever. Why is there a playing game? Just pick a team. Have some balls, NCAA. Pick a team.
I like it because it gives me something to watch on Tuesday and Wednesday. So I'll take it. But
I guess.
Here's Arizona State, though. They go 20-11 on the season. They go 8-10 in conference and then lose their first round game to Colorado in their conference tournament. A must win, they lose. So you're putting them into the tournament because of everything they did back in November. Yeah, they beat Xavier. Yeah, they beat Kansas. That's incredible. They also lost home games to Oregon. They lost at Stanford. They lost at home to Utah. They lost at Washington. None of those teams were even close to making the tournament. They lost to Oregon twice. They lost to Oregon State. They lost to Stanford at home. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Those are bad losses, and I feel for a team like Middle Tennessee. Yeah, they have one bad loss on the season. Yeah, that's going to keep them out. St. Mary's drops to BYU, and they get knocked out. Come on.
I'm pretty sure Middle Tennessee lost their first round game of their tournament, or the first game that they played in their conference tournament, and that really hurt them. I think they really needed to at least get to the finals, but they were good enough to be in this tournament. They kind of got gypped.
Absolutely.
But also
you Syracuse. But if you're going to look at like where they match up there, they could beat TCU if they get past Arizona State. And then you're looking at them, they're playing, then they'd be playing Michigan State, which I don't see Syracuse beating Michigan State. But still, Syracuse getting into the tournament, I mean, they've done it before. I'm still waiting to see if I can find.
I don't know.
Let's see. We're going to find that.
We'll never be able to find it. It's lost in time.
Lost forever.
It's not like we've been on the internet or anything. It's not like we have this thing called the internet or anything that can instantly give you information. That'd be convenient.
Here's what they did. They knocked off the 7 seed Dayton, the 15 seed Middle Tennessee, the number 11 seed Gonzaga, and then the 1 seed Virginia. That was the year.
What year?
This was 2000 and I don't know. Now the site that I just found all that information on is being less than normal. That's for sure. We're gonna hit back. I believe it was 2016. Right. Yeah, it was 2016 that they made it there. So Syracuse could make the run. A lot of people were saying they don't belong in the tournament, and I think that happens a lot where when people are filling out their brackets or when they're talking about who could be an upset and who could not be, they look a lot at that team doesn't belong. They shouldn't be in here. But then they forget, but now the team is there. What can they do because they are there? And Syracuse is one of those teams that, yeah, they could win a couple games. I don't see them getting past Michigan State. But then again, the last time they made a Final Four run, they were supposed to play Michigan State in the round of 32, and Michigan State decided they would lose to Middle Tennessee. So
Middle Tennessee, who was out of this tournament. So
which is such a shame. We miss out on Giddy Potts one last time because Giddy Potts is so good at basketball. I love Giddy Potts. He's fantastic.
So we're looking at let's look at the other Florida teams that are in this right now. Just so we got UF as a 6th seed in the East, and they're playing another stupid play-in game. Whoever wins between State Bonaventure and UCLA, you got that there. And then I think an interesting matchup is Florida State, Missouri. Florida State is losing; they're going to lose to Missouri. I think that's just going to happen. Michael Porter Jr. is back. He's the number 1 overall pick, or at least number 2, is what people are saying. He had a rough game his first game back. Yeah, I think it was like 5 for 17 shooting. He didn't look as explosive as he could have, but that's going to be a tough game for Florida State to come out.
Yeah, I'm going to say that Xavier right now actually does have one of the hardest number 1 seed paths because that second round game, you're playing either Missouri or Florida State, and one of those teams could beat you. And the thing with Florida State is they're like a long team. You know, they can score. And did they underachieve this year? I don't really know. They can put up points. And when you look at Michael Porter Jr.
They started out hot.
Yeah, and you look at Michael Porter Jr. on Missouri, and it's like if whoever wins that Florida State Missouri game, which I do think Missouri will end up pulling it out, they could easily knock off Xavier. The other 3 1 seeds, I think, are pretty much set to get to the Sweet 16. But that second round matchup, I don't know how Florida State's going to do. I'm very happy that, I don't want to be playing against Michael Porter Jr. in the first round of the tournament.
And that's the other thing about Missouri is everyone's talking about Michael Porter Jr. right now, and with good reason. He's got the talent, obviously. He's got, but they were a good team without him. They were a very good team without him, and their seeding at number 8 is mainly he played 1 game this year. Their seeding at number 8 is derived from the rest of their team playing without Michael Porter Jr. as an 8th seed. So now you add him into the mix, and that's a very dangerous 8th seed to me.
Mm-hmm. And what's crazy is they actually lost their first game with Michael Porter Jr., which was the first game they played in the NCAA tournament. They lost to Georgia. Mm-hmm. And Georgia was not good this year. So that's kind of surprising. But
they'll need to work on their chemistry a little bit. And, I mean, obviously they don't have a lot of time. This is March Madness. This is it. One loss and you're done. But yeah. I'm picking Missouri there. I think Missouri's going to win.
And for sure, even though I'm terrified of just the way that we match up against Loyola Chicago, I am very happy to not be Florida right now because Florida playing against Bonaventure or UCLA and St. Bonaventure, I actually think are just better teams than Florida. Like UCLA took a little bit to get going. They had the whole scandal that happened back when they were in China. All of that goes on. They lose ball, or I forget which ball is that?
There's like 8, but I think he's in Lithuania now. So
yeah,
I don't think he wasn't a big factor on their team this year. Anyways, I think he was kind of like a last option off the bench kind of guy. They didn't really lose much when he left the team.
But what they did lose was peace of mind because then you have that whole distraction of the Ball family around UCLA, and you have Alford having to make huge decisions with all of that going on. I mean, these are like seriously criminal charges in an international country. It's crazy. They finally settled down a little bit. And when I look at St. Bonaventure, this is a team that doesn't really play much defense, but they can outscore you. And they lost their conference tournament to Davidson. And Davidson I think Davidson's first 10 shots of that game were all from 3-point range, and they made 6 of them. That's why St. Bonaventure lost that game. They still only lost by a handful, or it was a handful, and then they ended up losing it.
Davidson's still shooting threes like they have Steph Curry on the team or something.
Seriously, it's scary. But, UCLA kind of started to settle down a little bit. I still don't think that they have any like marquee wins because they beat Kentucky. But this is another team that Pac-12, it's hard to consider any wins in the Pac-12. How good are they this year? Like, they don't seem like they're as good of wins as they used to be. They did beat Arizona in Arizona. That's the best win you're going to get. So that's at least a positive. They won in USC, so they beat the top 2 teams there. But UCLA, I don't know who's going to win that St. Bonaventure versus UCLA game, but I'm like convinced that whoever does win that is going to beat Florida, because Florida's another one of those teams. I just don't feel like Florida, in a completely, unbiased opinion, of course. It just to me, it doesn't feel like Florida's one of those teams that has played to their potential this year. They have wins over Cincinnati, wins over Kentucky, but they've also lost to Georgia by 12. They lost to Alabama by 18. They lost to Loyola Chicago at home back in November. This is a team
that resume of a middling kind of team right now. And and that's the other thing, they play in the SEC. It's not a tough conference right now. No. Florida impressed me early on this year, but as the year kind of went on, they showed some holes in the team. But I don't know. I don't know with them. Well, I guess we'll see. I can't say one way or the other, but I do think Missouri is going to beat Florida State.
Yeah. I think the other thing that's interesting with Florida, if you look at their actual resume, they look like an 8 or 9 seed. Like they really do. They're 20-12. They have all those losses I just listed off. They finished they finished 3rd in the SEC. Yeah, they finished ahead of Kentucky, but they didn't do anything special. They some of their wins, Weber State or Gardner Webb, UNF, they played the same teams we played. So not really sold on the Gators here, and they have a tough matchup in that first round. And then if they win, they play Texas Tech, who overachieved, and that game's going to be in Dallas. And Texas Tech versus Stephen F. Austin is the battle of the Lone Star State here. It's pretty funny that they're playing that game in Dallas, Texas. The committee doesn't do anything purposely, but yeah, no way, huh? Yeah, Texas Tech versus Stephen F. Austin in Dallas. What did you think about, so in terms of our seeding? We got a 6.
Right. We got the 6. I think that's fair. I think that was fair. Just in terms of our entire resume this season. I think they really could have been lower, honestly. They could have been a 7 or an 8, and I wouldn't have been surprised. So I think 6 is right. Is a really good seed for them right now. They did well on the seeding.
Yeah, I think that a 6 for us was the highest we could go. That was our ceiling. And it seems like a lot of times with Miami, they always go one step below what their ceiling was.
I agree.
So I was expecting us to be a 7, especially with how we looked against UNC. But I think they did take into consideration the fact that we beat UNC in UNC. UNC pushed Virginia to the limit. They knocked off Duke on that same neutral floor. I think that they took all of that into consideration. And when you're trying to decide, do we drop them down to a 7 line? Well, you have Texas A&M, Rhode Island, who lost their conference championship, Arkansas, and Nevada. Miami's a better team with a better resume than all 4 of those teams. So it's fair that we are in that 6th spot ahead of them.
But I think the point I want to say, though, is it better to be a 6 seed with a tough matchup like Loyola Chicago that we drew, or would you have rather been a 7 seed playing Texas right now?
I would rather be the 6th.
That's a tough question.
It's a tough question. I will say, as nervous as I am with Loyola Chicago here, I'd rather be the 6th seed playing Loyola Chicago, because I like the matchup against Tennessee better than I like the matchup against
That's exactly what I was thinking too in the second round. If they win that game, the matchup in the second round against most likely Tennessee looks a lot better to me than having to play Cincinnati.
And not for nothing, if you look at the 10 seeds across the board, I could see every one of those 10 seeds winning. You have Trae Young in Oklahoma, who – that's another team. They get into the tournament safely, which is mind-blowing because they have Trae Young.
You don't want to play Trae Young. And no matter how bad they've been struggling, no one wants to play Trae Young in the tournament.
No. And then you have Butler. You don't want to play against Butler right now. They're from the Big East, a conference with, Villanova, and they've played Villanova good. They've played Creighton well. You have Providence, who's the other 10 seed. They just lost to Nova in the Big East championship in overtime. I don't want to play Providence on a neutral court right now. Texas A&M got a terrible matchup there, and really, if Providence wasn't playing that possibly in the round of 32 in North Carolina against North Carolina, if that game was anywhere else in the country, I could really see Providence knocking out North Carolina.
Whoa there.
Just saying. If it wasn't in North Carolina, they're playing that game in Charlotte. Providence is going down. But That's a scary team. I'm happier playing Loyola Chicago
saying
than those
they
guys.
have the horses to beat anyone at any time if when they're rolling on all cylinders.
I mean, Ed Cooley ripped his pants for this. Okay, he did. A
See,
man named Cooley ripped his pants.
Ripped his pants. Roy Williams is ripping out here, ripping his suit jackets. I mean, no clothing is safe in college basketball.
Not this year.
So let's kind of bring it all back to this big picture. Where do you think Miami can finish? How far do you think Miami can go? Just prediction wise, what are you thinking?
I would say the furthest we're going to get is to the Elite Eight. I don't see us knocking off Virginia.
Let's be realistic.
Yeah, being realistic. Hey, I called it that we were going to lose to UNC in the conference tournament too. I mean, that's what's going to happen. You got to be realistic. If I'm filling out my bracket, I'm probably having us get knocked off by Cincinnati.
That's what I think the standard should be. If you're filling out your bracket and you got money on the line, where do you place Miami? How far do you have them going? And you say Elite Eight.
If I'm putting money on it.
Oh, now it's changing. Now.
Yeah, if I'm putting money on it, they're getting knocked out by Cincinnati. I think the furthest we can get is to the Elite Eight. And I'm saying that if I didn't go to Miami and I'm playing in one of those bracket pools where it's seed points, probably taking Loyola, but don't tell anybody.
Well, you just told all 5,000 of our average listeners.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I do think, though, in the long run, what's going to be interesting is this is going to be such a popular upset pick that you're going to be looking at this game going off with Miami as like a 2-point favorite. And that's going to be very funny to see how Larrañaga gets the guys to bounce back from nobody's respecting you. And how much do you want to pay attention to that? I don't know. But if you can get Lonnie Walker and Chris Likes to play to their max potential, get Vasiljevic knocking down threes, and then Azundu and Huell ready to play in that game, Loyola's not going to be able to stop us down low. And that's really the difference in all of these mid-major versus power conference team games is can they match up down low? And this Loyola team can't.
That's true. But that's that's a big if. Azundu needs to. He has consistency issues himself. I like when he can play well though. I like Azundu. I like Huell a lot, and when they're rolling, they make Miami look very good. But it's just the consistency issues with them.
It is, and Azundu has been playing really well lately. He's actually he was a beast in that.
He can give you 15 solid minutes a game, and that's all you need from him.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of other ACC teams now, if you want to look at like what an ACC preview would look like here.
Yeah.
I love that Clemson's playing New Mexico State in the first round in San Diego. New Mexico State, I think, wins that game as the 12 seed. New Mexico State is our first loss of the season. I think they can beat.
Yeah, throwing it back.
I think they can beat Clemson. I think that's a very unfavorable matchup for Clemson.
So what Virginia, you like this matchup is in you like that Clemson will lose?
Yes.
Would you happy about that? You don't like
No, I'm saying I think this like I said, if I'm doing the seed pool, yes, I'm very happy that Clemson lost. But I think that this is like one of the ACC teams. I'm looking at the ACC across the board. I think that FSU probably loses in the first round. I would say that Clemson loses in the first round, and I think Syracuse goes down in the first round. Other than that, I think the other 6 teams all move on. I think Virginia Tech knocks off Alabama. Alabama is a Colin Sexton show, and that's really it. And when Colin Sexton is off, Alabama is off. He was great in the tournament, but against Kentucky, they lost by 18 because Sexton was tired. I think that if you look at NC State, they're taking on Seton Hall in that 8-9 game. I like NC State there. Seton Hall, they are all over the map. You never know what you're going to get. They can't shoot free throws. They are just all over the place. I think NC State's more consistent. And then obviously Virginia, UNC, Duke, I see them moving on with really no problem. And I think Miami wins. So I really do think that we're going to lose 3 ACC teams off the bat and be down to 6 in the round of 32.
Round of 32, 6. Okay, that's a good number. That's a very good number for.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think New Mexico State, the thing that's with them is they could be a team that goes to the Sweet 16 to take on Kansas. Because Auburn. If Clemson gets past New Mexico State, I think Clemson can beat Auburn. Auburn the other night, they played Alabama in the SEC. It was either the semis or the quarters. I forget which one it was. But they played against Alabama. They were beating Alabama by 10 at halftime. Alabama was on a 20-1 run to start the second half, which is unbelievable. And for that to happen, you're putting Auburn, if they don't make their shots, they could even lose in the first round of Charleston. I don't think that happens. But if they're off, they're off. And they don't really have a way to come back against that.
I mean, 4-13 upset is happens all the time. You know, we see that a lot. And yeah, it really is just one team can get hot in that one game, and that's it. You know, so.
Yeah.
But I think that's all we got today. I think that was an awesome podcast. We there was a lot of great info. We finally introduced Phil onto here. Obviously, you can see he's got some great insights. He knows what he's talking about. He's not just some writer behind the computer screen. He's got some stuff. So
hopefully my voice wasn't grating.
Not too grating. I compare it to a cheese grater or nails on a chalkboard.
Nails on a chalkboard are fine. Never bother anyone.
But that's it. And so that, I don't even know how we're gonna have to cut this out later because I don't even know how to end this. But
here's how you end it. You do the well, that's it for our NCAA tournament preview. Thank you, Phil, for coming on and knowing everything about college basketball.
Yeah. All right. I'll do that. All right. Also, that's it for our NCAA tournament March Madness preview here on Kane's Insight. Thank you for Phil for coming on and knowing every little thing about basketball. You're the man.
Thanks, Steph, and I appreciate being here. I hope that it was helpful, and I hope nobody gets mad that I'm scared of this Loyola Chicago team.
No, I think we're right to be a little nervous. But so the big things we're watching out for is we'll see if Bruce Brown comes back. He's going to be evaluated tomorrow, and yeah, that's about it. So thanks for listening, guys, and later.